In emergency management, the definition of a stakeholder is any person or entity with a vested interest in the survival or recovery of a given community.
This is the Stakeholder Prepping podcast, where the tactical comes from the practical, and today, you become your own stakeholder.
Here are your hosts, Chris and AC.
Welcome back to Stakeholder Prepping, where you, yes, you are the stakeholder in your own survival. And AC, this one's a little different. I'm excited for today's episode, but what do we got on deck?
We always say that. We always say it's a little different. They're always a little different, aren't they? We always do a little different stuff. But yeah, this is the less than lethal episode, and this actually a couple listeners had asked about this because there are a lot of different like less than lethal options out there, and we're going to go over as many as we can think of. And we've done quite a bit of research on this, but yeah, this really is kind of the beyond the bullet episode. We're talking about mastering less than lethal force in not just an SHTF situation, but I think everyday survival. It's an important skill to have to know de-escalation techniques, and it's important to know what options are out there for less than lethal for people that maybe have an issue taking a life, maybe for people that live somewhere where they can't have a lethal weapon. So I think there's a lot of reasons to tackle this from a prepping standpoint.
Yeah, and that's right. We want to cover kind of the mindset and the de-escalation and the empty hands self-defense. So today we are tackling a massive topic that has a lot of folks in the prepping community, just skipping right over it. It's often very much so overlooked and just glossed over. Everyone wants to talk about, plate carrier this and battle rattle that, and I've got my 5.56 ammo can, I'll be fine. But really, let's look at reality. Let's take a step back and just base check ourselves here. If your only tool is a hammer, every single problem that you encounter is going to look like a nail. If your only response to a threat is lethal force, you are setting yourself up for an absolute legal, moral, and survival nightmare.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And in a true grid down, or really in any high stress scenario, whether it's a minor dispute over resources or, get off my lawn being territory, or just a simple misunderstanding about who rear-ended who or who had the right of way in an intersection, it shouldn't automatically result in a lethal exchange. That's just not how we want society to work, and not how we want society after SHTF to work. You don't want to be there.
Exactly. And bullets fly both ways. So even if you win, and I'm using quotation fingers, even if you win a gunfight, you still risk getting wounded when there are no hospitals open, and that can easily kill you. And if it's not a grid down situation, you're going to find yourself in massive legal trouble, even if you are 100% in the right. And Chris, I don't know, do you subscribe to any of the CCA stuff, like the concealed carry association, like any of their like concealed carry insurance stuff?
Yes, like the NAGR, National Association of Gun Rights, and USCCA.
Yeah, USCCA was the one I always get ads for them and stuff. So you can sign up and get help with like legal defenses and stuff. I don't have one of those. But I was
Actually, I do. I actually do have a legal shield or a legal defense through ARAG, ARAG.
okay.
But I have that for a multitude of other reasons because I hold a professional license. So it happens to protect me if I get into a gunfight. That's
Okay.
not why I primarily hold it.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And it's funny, yeah, the way those work a lot is you're not You're not buying an insurance policy, you're buying a subscription that also happens to have an insurance policy or something like that, because you
Precisely,
you
yeah.
can't legally insure something that's unlawful or something like that, right? There's some weird legalese there. But I was checking with CCW Safe, and they said that a private criminal defense for a lethal shooting, even if you're in the right, typically costs between $50,000 and $150,000 for any case that goes to trial. And for like a highly complex case, like something like capital murder or something that requires expert testimony to help you prove your innocence, legal fees and all those related expenses, they can easily reach $500,000. So,
And
like,
if
you
you
just,
look at the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, I think
my God.
the legal fees on that were something like 4.2 or 4.3 million.
Yeah, I mean, it's anything high profile, like, just don't put yourself in that position if you don't have to, and obviously, this doesn't solve every single problem. There are times when you may have to defend yourself using lethal force, but there's so many times when you don't, and I think that's really what we wanna focus on today is trying to get out of those situations where you may be forced to use lethal force. And we didn't do like any kind of disclaimer, but obviously, we're talking anything less than lethal. You use enough of it, use it the wrong way, you can still kill somebody. So don't take our advice here.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
obviously this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. We are not legal experts. We cannot give you any sort of legal advice. This is all just what our research was able to come up with.
Yeah,
And
100%. That's a great way to say it.
this is one of those things. This has to be your best judgment. When I was in the business of selling guns to people, I used to say if it comes down to you or someone else going home, make sure that you're the one going home.
Right. That's
And
a great way to put it.
it, today we're talking about the less than lethal toolkit, the LTL toolkit. So, how to survive the fight before it starts is a long and arduous process that happens in seconds. And really, that's where this whole less than lethal fight begins and ends, is all before it starts. So, how do you incapacitate a threat without ending a life? How do you talk somebody down, or how do you stop them from becoming a lethal threat so that you don't have to use lethal force? The very first thing in your less than lethal toolbox isn't a weapon at all. It's that verbal judo and de-escalation. It's your mouth, it's your tongue, it's that devil dancing around behind your teeth, and how fast can you make him tango?
Yeah, and I think we do want to talk a little bit about that because, here's the ultimate truth. The best way to win a fight is to completely avoid it. And there's some stuff I think we're not going to cover here, right? Uh, Sometimes a big dog is enough to avoid a fight. Physical barriers are kind of the ultimate way to avoid physical confrontation. You see these like road rage incidents where it's two idiots that get out of their vehicles and then something bad happens. And if one of them chose not to get out of their vehicle, then a lot of the time something bad wouldn't happen. So that's kind of the easiest, best way to avoid physical confrontation altogether is physical barriers. But yeah, so let's break this down. Where do you want to start, Chris?
I think probably one of the best places to actually start this is with what's called Cooper's color code.
Yeah, and
Uh,
that's like a firearm thing.
It,
That's
it
something you learn
is.
in firearm safety, sure.
But the color code goes beyond that. And we actually use the color code in combat quite a bit. And it's fairly simple. It was developed by fairly legendary firearms expert, Lieutenant Colonel Jeff Cooper. But the Cooper color code is really a situational awareness system. And it measures your mental state of readiness. So it progresses through 5 levels of alertness, and it helps you gauge your environment and react appropriately to potential threats, not active threats, but potential threats. Um, and kind of those awareness conditions, they break down fairly cleanly. Obviously, there are some exigent circumstances that could sway one way or the other, but we'll go with fairly cleanly. So, condition white. This is unaware and unprepared. You are completely tuned out, relaxed, oblivious to your surroundings. You are highly vulnerable to surprise attacks, right? This is really appropriate when you're in the safety of your own home. This is sitting on the couch on Saturday night, eating popcorn, watching a movie in your underwear, and you are not expecting the FBI raid to come through your front door.
Sure.
You're in condition white,
Yep.
right? For us in combat, condition white was weapons completely unloaded, slung behind your back. You still had your weapon on you. You did not have body armor on. You did not have your Kevlar on. Maybe you had your sunglasses. No combat gear whatsoever. You were still in uniform, but at most you had one magazine. That was it. And it was not in the weapon. It was in a cargo pocket or something to that effect. Unloaded, nothing in the chamber. That was it. Condition yellow. This is your relaxed alert. You're calm and relaxed, but you do have a baseline awareness of your environment. You do not expect a threat, but are mentally prepared to act if one arises. And this is kind of the optimal default state for navigating public spaces. This is when you're walking through a public space, you have your knife on you. You have something on you, and you're constantly scanning for potential threats. You are looking at people's hands. You're not looking at their feet. You're not looking at their faces. You're looking at their hands. You're constantly looking for that threat, head on a swivel, but you're still relaxed. It's not actually a threat until it becomes a threat. In the combat theater, it was okay, we are under alert. Now you have to carry 2 magazines on you at all times. We're still not wearing armor, but you have to always be within 150 meters of a mortar shelter. No excuses. They actually painted or posted lanes that you could not go outside of to go from place to place because those were the lanes that were 150 meters or less from the nearest mortar shelter. Uh, and then we get into condition orange, and this is a specific alert. So, specific alert, you have spotted something out of the ordinary that demands your attention and could be a potential threat. You are intensely focused on the anomaly and mentally preparing a plan to react. An example: flee, fight, or avoid. So something has caught your attention. You need to pay attention to it and either get away quickly. You need to make a decision if you're going to fight, or you need to make a decision if you are just going to avoid it entirely. And this, in a combat scenario, we would go into the strikers and go out of the wire in sometimes condition orange. So this was a magazine is in the magazine well, but there's not a round in the chamber. This was, all right, we have armor on, we have everything ready to go. There's a magazine in the well, but there's no round in the chamber. So we still have to actually make the conscious decision to go into the next phase, which is condition red. And that is your action fight stage. Threat is imminent or active. You have been transitioned to a lethal or defensive mode and are actively executing your plan to neutralize or survive the threat. There were plenty of times we left the wire and go condition red. We are expecting a fight. Go ahead and lock and load that magazine, charge one into the chamber, keep it on safe, but we are expecting imminent contact. And I can't really describe that feeling to somebody who has never experienced it, because as soon as you know that your weapon is hot and you are expecting a dangerous contact scenario, something inside of your body changes and you kind of feel elated and terrified at the exact same time. It's really, really this
Yeah,
complex emotion field.
that's that HPA stuff you were talking about, right? Where you get this super elevated adrenaline and your HPA excess is crazy and like it's go time.
It is, and it's really, really hard to come down from when you're on patrol for a 9 or 10-hour patrol shift and nothing happens, but you're constantly on watch for something to happen and kick off at any moment. It's really, really hard to come down from and go to sleep
Yeah, sure, of course.
because you know
Right.
you've got to do it again in 4 hours. So it's a very strange sensation, but your condition red is one is in the chamber. I'm ready to go. Make your move,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
then condition black is kind of your panic and shutdown mode. And most of the time, this is an unofficial kind of fifth stage to describe a breakdown in cognitive function. This is when an individual is caught completely unprepared or overwhelmed after the condition red threat, and it results in that freeze or blind panic. This is after that first round snaps overhead and you think you're prepared for it and you completely shit the bed. Just, I was not ready.
Yep.
Can I get a
That's
mulligan?
panic mode. Right.
Yeah, it's mulligan mode, basically. But here's the important part for this section of this discussion. Moving from condition yellow, that relaxed alert, to condition orange, a specific alert, allows you to spot and threat early enough to walk away. In my
Right.
case, that doesn't apply because I'm under orders and we had a specific mission. Most of the time, we were looking for trouble to help solve it. But if you are in a civilian stance, you're going from yellow to orange and you can spot that threat early enough, you still have time to walk away. You don't need to escalate and you can move away before that threat becomes imminent. You can back yourself down from yellow to orange to yellow. You don't have to go yellow, orange, red.
Right. And yeah, because we're preppers, we need to live in that sort of yellow to orange, that condition amber, if you will, I think is what they call the color between the two, maybe, right? But that's where you need to live. And if you're living in that zone where you're always on that alert and you're looking for the threats, then it allows you to de-escalate and back away before something has to happen. And that really is the absolute best way to avoid a fight. I mean, that is the ultimate less than lethal. But you had mentioned like the verbal judo, and I like that. I want to talk about that. The managing your ego is so tough, right? You have to manage your ego in a survival scenario. It's your pride that can get you killed. If someone insults you or demands you get off their lawn, de escalating sometimes means swallowing your pride to keep your skin intact. And that's that verbal judo. So the framework for that is pretty easy. It's listen actively, right? You let your aggressor vent. Venting drops adrenaline levels. It just does. If you get to go scream it out, then you're going to be at a lower adrenaline level. And then empathizing, right? And this is kind of one of those Chris Voss things. This is one of those negotiation tactics is I get why you're angry, man. Everything is chaotic right now. You empathize with this person who wants to rip your head off. And then lastly, this is where you really have to swallow your pride and check your ego is offering an exit ramp, giving them a face-saving way to back down without looking weak. Like, "Hey man, listen, we both know if we get in a fight, you're going to kick my ass. So I'll just take the L here and back off." And you give that person that face-saving way to just back down and take the win without them looking weak. But the other thing you need to do here, and this is very important, is you need to be ready with that red line. You need to do this boundary setting, that transitioning from polite talk to your command presence. And this is something that we see in the law enforcement community a lot, right? Where you can go from this casual conversation to stop right there, don't come any closer. And you establish this boundary. And that is this boundary setting is you need to be able to draw that red line. And you need to know when it is go time. You don't just keep backing down. You allow the aggressor to back down. You give them an off ramp. If they don't take it, you need to have that red line in the sand.
I will say that is probably something that our audience is going to realize they struggle with more than they realize is setting boundaries.
100%. 100%. Yeah, it's tough. That whole thing, that spiel I just gave you is tough to do.
And personal life, professional life, physical boundaries, it doesn't really matter. You have to be able to assert your presence and stand your ground and not give it up because
Right.
if it, your therapist will tell you, no, Martha, you have to be able to stand up to your brother.
Yeah.
You have to
stand
be
up
able to
for
stand up
yourself.
to your sister.
Yep.
And your therapist will tell you, no, Davis, you have to be able to stand up to your boss. You have to be able to stand up to your coworkers. And your therapist is not going to be there when SHTF and you're staring down the barrel of a gun at a
Right.
pack of raiders to say, no, you
Yeah.
have to be able to tell them to stay on their side of the sidewalk.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. You need to know when to go from backy down nice guy to I'm gonna stand my ground. And that's a very tough situation to be in. But let's say we're forced to fight, then what are our options there, Chris?
Well, this is where it gets a little bit fun and a little bit tricky at the same time. So let's talk about the martial arts matrix and why the ground dictates reality a lot of the time. So we're going to break down the pros and cons of traditional versus modern martial arts combat systems for preppers.
I like it. And I want to make a couple of points before we do this. Um, there are a ton of different martial arts out there, and learning any of them is going to serve you well, not just in a fight, but for your physical health and even your mental acuity. But for this exercise, we're going to focus more on like the police tactics because they've been doing this for a very long time, and they have far more conservative rules of engagement than the military does. It also looks really bad when they kill people. So departments in their academies and their advanced basic instruction have been teaching non-lethal ways to win fights forever, and they're always adapting these. And I spend a lot of time in courses with law enforcement, some of these defensive tactics, some of these ground fighting things. I've seen this myself. I've done some of this myself. So there's a ton of different martial arts out there. We're going to focus on ones that we see law enforcement focus on for good reason.
Yeah. And let's start with what you could call the striking arts. All right. This is boxing, Muay Thai, Krav Maga, Taekwondo, karate, Hapkido, all kinds of striking arts. These are the high intensity ones that you see in movies all the time,
Yep.
right?
Like this is
The
what you
pro-
learn to do when you paint the fence or wax the car.
Right. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. Wax the car, kick somebody's ass.
Right.
Pros, they are great for maintaining distance. They are absolutely fantastic for conditioning, especially cardiovascular health and handling multiple attackers. They are beyond fantastic for that if you get to the point where you can maintain your balance that long. Cons, punching someone in the skull frequently tends to break the small bones in your hand. If you've ever had a boxer's fracture, I have. It sucks. But in an unsanitized environment, an infection from a cut hand can actually be fatal. There was a line in The Walking Dead where Abraham had his hand cut and he said, Don't worry about the cuts. They're finer than frog's hairs, right? Well, that little finer than frog's hairs can still get infected and you could be screwed, believe it or not, just from a fist fight.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about that you could actually you could hurt yourself in a fist fight and then get infected, and that could actually cause problems for you.
Yeah, you bust your knuckles on somebody's teeth, I guarantee that's already infected. 2 weeks after shit hits the fan, their mouth has not been brushed in a while. So, let's go to the grappling arts and the ground fighting reality. This is your Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, wrestling, Sambo. This is your core get to the ground because the fight is going to end up there anyways. So, this is get them to the ground before they can take you there. Statistically, if a physical altercation lasts more than a few seconds, it will almost always end up on the ground unless there's a referee. Bar fights almost always go to the ground after the first, I think it's 17 seconds. Street fights, it goes to the ground after the first 12. And most of that is just proximity and who is around and how much stuff there is to lean on or stand on. So whether through a tackle, a slip, a clinch, gravity is going to win. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just physics,
Yeah,
right?
100%. I see what you're saying. So you're saying that let's learn those martial arts where you have the advantage on the ground because that's where an unrefereed fight is going to find itself.
Right. And that's why Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, wrestling, Sambo, Judo, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is kind of king for less than lethal. And Judo is right behind it. But Brazilian Jiu Jitsu or BJJ, it gives you absolute control over that escalation ladder. If someone attacks you, you don't have to knock them unconscious or cause permanent brain damage to take control. You can close the distance, take them to the ground, neutralize their limbs, and hold them in a position where they cannot hurt you until they calm down or you can escape, right? Um, both BJJ and Judo have chokes and joint locks. Joint locks can break things, causing permanent damage. I have done that to somebody inadvertently, but I have done it. Um, or cleanly applied vascular or air chokes, like the rear naked choke, triangle choke, any number of chokes. They temporarily disrupt blood to the brain, or they disrupt air to the lungs and therefore oxygen to the brain. And they cause a semi safe 5 to 10 second unconsciousness window, allowing you to basically tie them up or leave Dodge. So, really, that prepper warning comes with Brazilian Jiu Jitsu in a sports gym doesn't account for weapons being involved. If there's a knife in a fight, you're going to get cut. You have to accept that almost immediately. If a knife is in a fight, whether it is your knife, their knife, or both, you're going to get cut. It also doesn't account for multiple attackers. So you have to adapt it and watch for knives, guns, a second person jumping in and stomping on your spine from behind or kicking you in the head. You just have to be really aware of your own surroundings when you're getting tangled up with somebody. But if you can get somebody to the ground and pin them in some way that is very uncomfortable to them, you're probably going to succeed there.
Yeah, that's a good point. And again, this kind of goes back to law enforcement. Law enforcement, they teach ground fighting, grappling. Those are the main defensive tactics because exactly what you said is the fight is statistically likely to end up on the ground, and their goal is to get that situation under control as soon as possible without doing permanent damage to people. So I just think, yeah, if you're going to look at a new martial art to learn, I would say you're absolutely right in that ground fighting, grappling stuff is that's what they teach law enforcement exactly for this reason, exactly what we're talking about. So, um, now I want to talk about the chemical deterrents. This is a big part of Less Than Lethal. This is really probably the one that most people are familiar with, right? This is the the little cute pepper spray on the keychain stuff, right? Like,
These are the gnarly ones, yeah.
yeah, but this is but let's talk about this because I think a lot of people kind of lump them all together and there are differences. A lot of people just use mace as this interchangeable with everything. Like, oh, it's just mace, and mace is one of those like brand names that started out as a tech. And let's clear up this massive piece of misinformation. First, people use the word mace as this generic term for pepper spray, and it's actually not the same thing. The traditional mace, original mace, was CN tear gas that Alan Lee Lichtman in the 60s had basically commercialized it. He took like World War II CN gas and put it in like an aerosol after like one of his buddies got attacked. And so that's not what mace is anymore. Why is every weirdo's middle name Lee? Like all the psychopaths are Lee, right? Anyway, he's like, what I should do? I should take tear gas and put it in a hairspray bottle. It's like, of course your middle name's Lee. But yeah, back in the 60s, that's Alan Lee Lichtman. Made basically he started mace, and the word mace, it was like, like the medieval weapon. It was this virtual mace, basically chemical mace is what it was. And it was CN gas. So there is tear gas, which is an irritant, right? And that's CN and CS both. I think CN, I don't think is used very much anymore, but it's one of them is and one of them isn't. But they rely on this pain compliance. If someone is hopped up on drugs, severe psychosis, pure adrenaline, pain compliance often fails. And so this CN and CS, they're the most common types of like the riot control agents you'll see cops use. And they're kind of loosely called tear gas, right? And both are chemical powders that are heated and then dispersed in an aerosol that immediately causes irritation, this eyes, nose, throat, right, in your skin. And CN, which is the chloroacephenone, I think.
Yeah,
It's
CN is, I know CN is chloroacetophenone, and then CS is O-chlorobenzidine. Benzylidine.
You're way better at those than I am. But yes, you are exactly right. And CN, the original mace, it's rarely used in modern times anymore because it's a way higher risk of causing skin blisters and like permanent eye damage. CS, that's the modern standard for police and military crowd control because it's actually more potent. And that's good because it means they use way less of it, like way less is needed for the same incapacitating effect. So it's considered less toxic, right? But here's the thing, those are completely different than when you think of mace in the spray bottle. That is capsicum. That is OC. OC spray is what any of those bottles say are. Even the ones like Mace. Mace is a name brand that makes OC spray. As a civilian, you can get a hold of OC. And what is OC? Something capsicum.
Oleoresin capsicum.
Oleoresin capsicum,
Nasty, nasty stuff.
which is actually pepper spray. It's made from peppers and it's an inflammatory agent. Now, this is why all the things I just said are important, because it doesn't care how tough you are or how much pain you can tolerate, because OC is different. When it hits your face, it causes the capillaries in your eyes to dilate, forcing your eyelids to slam shut. It inflames mucous membrane. It causes immediate coughing, gagging, all that kind of stuff. Makes you feel like your lungs are on fire. So it's actually a physiological failure, not just pain. Like it forces your eyes closed, not from the pain. And that's what's really important about that is when you buy this like OC spray, anything that you think of as mace, it's actually different than the crowd control stuff that the government still uses. It's a completely different chemical, which is kind of interesting. But there's a few different types of these, right? There's the traditional, like the spray, stream, stuff. And it's just this liquid stream of OC. It goes, 10, 12 feet maybe. It's pretty easy to aim. But the problem with that stuff is it has severe blowback. So in windy conditions, you can cross contaminate that air. You can spray yourself in the face, right? This is literally pissing into the wind. So the better stuff, kind of the best thing out there really, is this new pepper gel. That is something that's new in the last decade and a half, maybe. And it's this very sort of sticky, heavy compound. Because it's denser, it can fly further under that propellant. So it can go sometimes up to 18, maybe 20 feet. And it's this really heavy stream. It's really resistant to wind, and it sticks to the target. So it actually makes it safer for like indoor use. Um, and it requires pretty precise aiming. It's more like a squirt gun, and it's sort of slower to spread across the face. You want to aim this at the face, obviously. But so
And
prepper
that stuff has UV dye in it. So
Mm, almost all of them do. That's exactly right. All of the gels and the sprays and the streams and all that, pretty much all of them come with some kind of UV dye. So even after they wash it off, the police can still identify people who have been hit with it, and that's really good for reporting crimes, obviously. And then the other thing, and I think Chris, you're probably going to go into this way better than I can, but there's the pepper and kinetic balls. And there's a bunch of different kinds of these that are actually launched from a projectile, and they can get pretty far. They can get 30, 50 feet in some cases. And so it's these little like pepper powder balls, like a paintball almost. So yeah, really, if you're going to go with a thing to, keep in your pocket, keep in your purse, whatever, go with like I keep saying prepper, the pepper
of
gel.
course
That's
we
just,
do.
it's a Freudian slip. We say that a lot, but the pepper gel is the gold standard, especially for like home defense, because it's better indoors. It's not going to aspirate as much and come back and get you. Or like vehicle defense, things like that. So, uh, you don't have that self-contamination in those super tight spaces. So that's kind of that's really what you would look for if you're into some kind of aerosol thing, is that pepper gel is really, really the best. And they rate them on the percentage of capsicum. And this is something I recently learned, is there's actually two like percentage ratings for these. There's the OC rating. It's usually like 10% is good, but you'll see some brands that say 18 or 20% or something like that. But what they say you should actually look for is the MC percentage, which is the major capsaicinoids, I think it is. Am I saying that right? Capsaicinoids?
Yes, I
Yeah.
think so.
So that's the MC percentage, which is actually usually lower. It's like 1 to 2%. But that's the number that matters, because that is the ingredient that the FDA recognizes as something that's like really, really bad for you. Like that's the FDA recognized poison, not the OC, but the MC percentage. So when you're looking at these, people will usually sort of fudge that larger number. Like, oh, it's 20% OC, which actually doesn't matter. It's that lower percentage number of the MC that's like really important. So if you could find like a 2% MC, that's way better than a 20% OC, because that's the number that's actually the bad stuff.
Yeah, and you'll be able to find, OCS spray that's a hybrid or combination of OC and CS.
Right.
There's all kinds of different brands and all kinds of different, uh, mixes, and customize your own mix. I'm sure there's a website out there where you can go out and blend your own mix. And
Ooh, I like that. Like cologne or wine.
yeah,
Yeah, this is my
I
own special blend of CNCS OC gas.
blend at your own peril is
Put a
all I
little
will
on a
say.
taco and you are south of the border.
But you brought up the paintball ones, which are the kinetic balls, and they are rated for 30 to 60 feet in effective distance. They will go a lot further. they'll go triple that distance
Sure. I
easily.
think it matters about, when that ball will break 100% of the time, right? I think that's kind of how they rate those. And if it hits a softer target, right, that ball might not break all the
Right.
time.
That 30 to 60 feet is when it will break 100% of the time against a soft target wearing an overcoat.
Sure. Yeah.
That
So
it
lands on
has
a
to be
soft
rated
target, right?
against a person wearing an overcoat. But in a standoff situation, which is where you will see most of the time police using these, uh, they're firing into a building. So they'll just pepper the windows and they'll break the windows, pepper ball into the building, and that's a hard surface behind it. It's gonna break.
And so this kind of started with paintballs. Like they used to use those in prison a lot, these pepper paintballs, because it's a 68 caliber, which is the exact same size as a paintball, and they'd use them in a paintball launcher. Like they'd be using Tipman paintball launchers. And now we're seeing more of these like Byrnas and Umerix, which are brands that make these little tiny ones that might hold 5 or 10 rounds. And they're like a traditional pistol.
Right. Yeah. So the Berna and Umarex, and basically these are launcher devices. They look and handle similarly to compact firearms. Some of them are built around the M&P Shield platform. Some of them are built around the Beretta platform. Some of them are built around the Glock platform. Um, Kind of depends on police department around the country what their preference is, but they're designed to be very similar in mechanics to whatever that department's preferred weapon is. So there's no uptake or retraining on how to use that particular system. They all function almost entirely the same way. They use a compressed 12-gram CO2 cartridge to launch a, a pepper round, a paintball filled with CS, OC, a mix of two, or even pepper gel. And they launch these kinetic or chemical payloads. They come in a variety of calibers. There's 68, 61, I think 50, 41,
43 or
43.
yeah, it's 41 or 43. Yeah, a couple of different sizes. Yeah, exactly. I have one. It's the Umerix brand or whatever, and you're right, you had mentioned kinetic rounds. They're like little steel balls that are this exact same size, and then they're rubber coated. And
Right.
it's funny, the only thing I've used these for is, uh, in the winter when snow builds up on my satellite dish on the second floor. I just shoot these little kinetic rounds at it. Not this, I'm not kidding. It's the only time I've used this thing is I use the kinetic because they're very dense. They're these little almost bouncy balls, but they're extremely dense. They've got like a lead or a steel core. They're very heavy, and I can shoot them up onto the second floor pretty accurately and hit the satellite dish and knock all the snow off.
And then you wonder why your satellite dish doesn't get channel 251 or whatever it is.
It looks like a Jamaican steel drum now.
But yeah, the Stinger balls, that's a kinetic one.
Hmm.
Stinger or Hornet balls is a great way to look at it. But yes, they're most commonly the 68 caliber, common paintball caliber. Um, but these rounds, most of these devices, they have a pull to pierce mechanism. So the that 12-gram cartridge sits kind of unpierced inside of the grip, or under the barrel until that moment where you pull the trigger for the first time. It's not like the old school paintball pistols that I had where you screwed in and as soon as you cranked it down to a certain point, it pierced it and you
Oh,
had 3
yeah.
hours to use it.
Yeah, that's funny. That's what mine's like. It's like you hit the end of it, you screw it down and kind of hit it, and that opens up that CO2 cartridge. So yeah, the tech has come a long way since then.
Right. And what that does is it ensures that the gas never slowly leaks out over months of storage. So it's kind of a crucial feature for a prepper's long-term staging bag if you're going to use one of these. But these kinetic rounds, they are the hard plastic or polymer balls. They strike with enough energy to break bone potentially. They definitely can shatter windows. They do inflict heavy bruising. They can cause immediate psychological and physical stopping power. They are pain in a ball. They
And these
are
aren't like the rubber balls. These aren't like rubber bullets you see. This is completely different.
right. These are not solid rubber. These have a hardened core. These will sting. And if you get hit in the ribs with one, I hope it doesn't hit an actual rib bone at close range because you're going to be sucking wind for a month or two. Um, there are the eco-kinetic ones. These are water soluble rounds for practice. These are basically normal paintballs.
Okay. So they get in the wetlands and they're going to kill the manatees or something.
And you can wash them out of your clothes.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. Okay.
yeah. So if you ever get a chance to do training with your local police department, and this is something, if you ever get a chance to do it, it is incredibly fun. Volunteer to be op four or opposing force for your local police training academy, and just walk through whatever routines that they want to go through. It is incredibly fun. If they want you to be a hostile DUI driver, they'll put you in a mask and a little bit of body armor, and then they'll have the recruits like shoot you for being belligerent or whatever when you try to get
Yeah.
out of the car.
So are they
It's a
using do they use
blast.
these the Byrna style things? Do they use those more now than like the old school simunitions that were actually like a powdered load?
They do. They do.
Oh, okay.
And it's because these are less lethal than the less than lethal simunitions,
They're less lethal.
and they're far less expensive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sure, that makes sense. Because yeah, they're not like a loaded round. They're just little balls in a CO2 canister. That makes sense.
Yeah, and then they obviously have the Max or the pepper rounds. These are a blend of OC and CS powder. Um, Basically, as soon as these make impact, that shell fractures just like a paintball, but instead of creating a paint splot, it creates this localized, about 5 foot cloud of chemical irritant that incapacitates the target's respiratory system. If you get smoked in the chest by one of these, you are not breathing comfortably for the next 15 to 20 minutes. And they can shoot multiple rounds and hit you in the same spot over and over and over again as you are trying to run away. You can do the same thing to your attacker, and they're going to be incapacitated before they understand what's going on. You have stopped the lethal threat before it becomes lethal.
Got it. I see a lot of these Byrna commercials, and yeah, I just didn't know they're obviously a lot different than the one I bought several years ago. So it's interesting how far the tech has come. I mean, that's obviously a great less than lethal option. I think they're legal almost everywhere. Like I think they're California legal.
I believe they are. Now, there's one other that I know is not going to be California legal. I'm pretty sure you have to have an FFL to even touch one, but that's a 40 millimeter grenade launcher.
Yeah,
They
that's a little
do
different.
make they do make less than lethal rounds for the 40 millimeter grenade launcher. We called them Nerf rounds.
Right.
Um, those when we were practicing with them, we had a basically what you would call an indoor tennis court or squash court um, size area, and we fired one from about the halfway point against a wall just to see what it would do. We bounced it off of that wall. It ricocheted and went off of the back wall and then came back and hit the original guy who fired it in the back of the calf. And it left a bruise about the size of a softball on his calf for about 3 weeks.
Wasn't that was just like in Jackass, I think. I think Steve-O did that.
They are absolutely no joke.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if that's something you can get your hands on civilian. Plus, not very concealable, right? Probably not something that you're gonna, you know, just have on your person for a less than lethal fight, the big 40 millimeter. Probably not.
I have seen the meme that says anything is concealable if you're not a little bitch. But I
wear
don't know if that's
if
really
you wear
where we're going with this.
big enough trench coat. So the next thing I want to talk about is the conducted energy devices, right? Like the stun guns and the tasers. So this is kind of the electricity category. If I hear one more movie or news report call a handheld, like a dry stun device, a taser, I'm going to lose my mind, because they are two totally different things. And let me break down the mechanics here, because understanding the difference could save your life if you're relying on these tools. The stun gun is direct contact. It's two fixed metal prongs at the end of like a wand or a flashlight or a thing that looks like a cell phone. There's all kinds of different ones, but it requires you to physically push the device into the attacker's body. It relies strictly on this localized pain compliance. So it causes superficial muscle spasms and it's painful, but it does not disrupt the nervous system. If someone is dedicated or bigger than you, they can usually fight through it. And you'll see these, they're rated in the hundreds of thousands or millions of volts or whatever. But that's the stun gun. The taser is it uses compressed nitrogen to shoot these two small darts that are attached to these insulated copper wires. So it's actually utilizing neuromuscular incapacitation. They call it NMI. It sends electrical pulses that mimic the body's internal communication system. It basically hijacks the entire nervous system, and it causes involuntary full body muscle locking. So it's different tech. And those prongs are kind of further away on purpose because obviously electricity follows the path of least resistance, right? Now there's a difference between the police tasers and what civilians can own. And it's quite a bit different. The police tasers, you'll see them, they're yellow, right? And they can dry stun with those as well, meaning they can take the cartridge off and they can have a dry contact stun. They don't need to shoot you with these darts. If they're in a fight, you'll see this a lot where they can pull that cartridge off. But with the cartridge on, they shoot a lot longer distances than what the civilians can own. They can go, I've seen ones now that can go up to like 45 feet, but generally they say more than 20 feet, 25 feet, somewhere around there. It depends on the cartridge. But they also have a shorter cycle time. And this is really interesting. The police ones, they operate for 5 seconds every time they pull the trigger. And you'll see this if you watch Cops or any of those shows. You'll see they'll say taser, 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 and then they hold it and the person is, incapacitated for like 5 seconds. And then if they don't comply, they can hit them again with it, pull the trigger again, another 5 seconds. And they can basically reload themselves very quickly. Every time you pull the trigger, it can go for 5 seconds. The civilian units are totally different. They're a lot shorter range. They don't allow you to have the super long range ones. They're about 15-foot range. But this is what's different is they have a 30-second continuous cycle time, and it's only good once. And so the idea, the philosophy here is that you use them to shoot a threat, you pull the trigger, and then you drop the device to the ground and you run away while that is cycling for 30 seconds. So if you miss, it's game over. And if you hit them, you're not going to be able to hit them again. That's what those are for. So the civilian units and the police units are considerably different. But that's kind of the three different kinds of what we'll call the conducted energy less than lethal devices. Your standard dry stun gun, and then the two different types of tasers. The civilian ones are obviously operate a little differently. So what's our last category here, Chris?
I gotta say, 30 seconds is a long time to be on the ground
Can
shaking.
you imagine? I mean, yeah, it's a long time. I mean, like 5 seconds seems like a long. So they call that, the cops, they have to do it in basic. They call it like riding the bull, right? Take the full 5 seconds. And I could 6 times longer than that. But that's the thing. You got to hit them. You got to hit them, because if you don't, that tool now is completely worthless to you.
Have you ever been tased? Dry stunned or tased?
I've been dry stunned. I've not been tased.
Okay. I've
Yeah.
had to do both.
Did you? You probably did the OC, or not OC, but the CS gas stuff too, or the CS
Hmm.
gas, right? You probably guys did
Yeah,
yeah, go in, take it. And that teaches you not just that your drill instructors are assholes, but also to trust your gas mask, right? That's the whole point, is teach you to trust
very
it,
true.
right? Yeah.
Extremely true. I've done OCCS, dry stun, tase, I had to certify on all of the non-lethals that we use, so I
Yeah.
had to take one of those Nerf rounds. At least it was in the body armor,
Right.
but yeah,
Still,
it sucks.
yeah, it
It
sucks.
sucks.
So speaking of the less lethal in the body armor,
I had to do one of these, which was the 12 gauge less than lethal arsenal. These are
oh man.
Yeah, standard 12 gauge shotgun is one of the most versatile survival tools because of just the sheer variety of ammunition it can chamber. But when we're talking about less than lethals, you have blanks, flashbangs, beanbags, rubber slugs, rubber buckshot, rubber duckshot. You have all kinds of things that you can throw in there. So let's start with blanks and flashbang rounds. The purpose behind these is just purely psychological warfare. It produces a massive muzzle flash and 120 decibel report. That's almost as loud as a jet engine. So we're talking a big bang. They are excellent for warning shots. They are great for scaring off predatory wildlife or just creating absolute mayhem during an ambush so that you can escape. Uh, if you put a jet engine in your living room and kick it on, that's what that's what your intruder
Yeah.
is going to hear.
With a giant flash too, a lot of the time, right? They have a
Oh
massive
yeah,
flash. It's not just this 120 decibel report, but it's this massive fireball that comes out too.
yeah. That is also why in a lot of states the flashbang rounds are illegal for hunting to flush birds.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I didn't realize there is some legitimate hunting uses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Next, we've got beanbag rounds. I have experienced these. I don't want to again, but yeah. Beanbag rounds, the law enforcement standard for crowd control and compliance. They are a tear shaped fabric bag that are filled with lead shot inside of a 12 gauge hull. And the ballistics on these, they kind of act like a slinky coming out of the barrel, but they transfer this massive kinetic energy wave over a wide surface to prevent penetration. And it feels like getting hit by a 90-mile-an-hour fastball right square in the chest. And that is 100% true. It really does feel like that because as soon as it hits, it spreads out and it just whump, and you can't breathe for about 10 minutes.
Now, can civilians get those? Is that something I've never seen a beanbag round for sale. I've seen rubber buckshot and rubber slugs and things like that, and the plastic baton rounds, but I've never seen the those beanbags. Is that something that they don't allow civilians to have?
You can get them. They are hard to find, and it really depends on state and local law. So
Okay.
you have to check your local law and ordinance to see if they
Yeah.
are legal.
Sure.
But you can, depending on where you live.
Okay.
And then we get into rubber slugs and plastic baton rounds. Some places these are legal, some places they are not. So again, check. But these are going to be your solid polymer or rubber projectiles meant for singular targets. They are very accurate, up to 25 yards. Most of the time, these will actually look like little missiles in a clear casing, but they'll look like almost little atomic bombs with a tail on them, just to keep them accurate. And then rubber buckshot. Um, these are basically rubber buckshot. Double aught buckshot. So you've got 9 pellets inside of a 12 gauge round. You've got 9 caliber pellets, and they're designed for area denial or dealing with multiple aggressive animals or intruders at short ranges. These ones absolutely will break skin if you're inside of 10 yards because I've had to dig them out of my own
Ugh,
calf. Um,
ugh, I don't like that.
but critical safety warning on all of this, right? The dedicated platform rule. And this goes for everything that we have talked about. You must never, ever, under any circumstances, mix less than lethal shotgun rounds in the same magazine tube or storage pouch as lethal ammunition. And here's why. Adrenaline causes cognitive tunnel vision. We have talked about this before. In a high stress scenario, you will experience sympathetic muscle reflexes and load a live lead slug or round by mistake. For police agencies, a less than lethal shotgun platform must be visually distinct. These are why you see orange or green or blue or purple or red shotguns in police cruisers. Typically, they are designated by bright orange or blue stocks and forends, clearly marked to avoid fatal errors. Furthermore, close range deployment under 5 feet of beanbags or rubber slugs can still easily penetrate skin, crush windpipes, crack skulls, making them lethal. This is the same effect as if you put marbles in a paintball gun. Don't do it.
Right. It can easily become lethal. And, I bought, a couple of cheap shotguns. They were like, Palmetto State. I don't know whose brand they were, but, just a standard, 5-round pump action shotguns. And the reason I bought them, the same shotgun, uh, was a friend of mine had bought me a skeet clay pigeon launcher. And so I just want to have a couple of cheap shotguns that, anybody want to come over and shoot clays in the backyard. I had a couple that I didn't really care about. And I've actually thought about this, and you and I have talked about this a little, Chris, is one of those. I was thinking about just, painting that orange or just putting, just a tag it with some orange spray paint, just so I know I have one that if I ever need a less than lethal shotgun, then that is always going to be the one, because I do have less than lethal rounds. I've never used them. I've never deployed them. You and I have talked a lot about when you would or wouldn't, and I just haven't bumped into a situation where I would need a less than lethal round. But certainly I can understand why that situation could present itself, especially in, a world without law, right? So I have one of these shotguns that would likely be that dedicated less than lethal. You just hit it with some orange spray paint, and hey, that's the less than lethal. You only load less than lethal rounds in that, and then you don't make that mistake like you're talking about. Because you see this in police departments a lot, where they will accidentally hit somebody with buckshot, and they thought they were using less than lethal because the adrenaline spikes, and you make poor decisions.
Exactly. You see, there are plenty of body cam videos out there of police who thought they were pulling their taser and they pull
Right?
their gun.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
just muscle memory.
yeah, and I used to keep less than lethal. I used to keep rubber buckshot as the first round in the chamber, loaded in a shotgun for home defense, and then the next one behind it was Hornady critical defense buckshot. And I stopped doing that because I realized the uh, the less than lethal will not cycle a semi-automatic.
Oh, that's interesting. Really, it wouldn't cycle for you
Not at all.
in a. Was this a Mossberg 590 or was this a 1100?
This is actually a Beretta TX4.
Well, that's really interesting, and it wouldn't cycle at all, huh?
Nope, wouldn't
Huh.
even touch it.
Okay, interesting.
So, yeah, and I mean, Italian-made shotgun. It was a beautiful shotgun, but yeah, the less than lethal does not have the same amount of powder behind it as a normal shotgun round. So, but as we wrap this up, we want you to kind of look at your personal defense plan. And if your plan moves straight from harsh words to lethal force, you, you should probably reevaluate. You have a massive hole in your preparedness strategy. And this is just a strategy problem for you. So start with your mind and body. Get on the mats, learn some basic grappling so you don't panic if someone grabs you. Carry a high quality pepper gel or a less than lethal device that you're comfortable with, or something that gives you that 15-foot standoff zone against aggressive dogs, angry people, uh, you know, a panther that jumps out at you in the middle of the night when things go bump, whatever. But develop your plan and your strategy accordingly and keep your lethal options as a last resort, even without rule of law, even when everything has gone to hell. Keep your lethal options as a last resort, reserved exclusively for when there is an imminent threat to life or limb. Train with your less than lethal tools just as hard as you train with your firearms. You have to stay safe, stay rational, keep edging closer to total resilience. That's the goal of this, right?
Yeah, and that you said it. That's exactly it. Train with your less than lethal. That's the one thing. No one goes out and trains with these the way they train with their firearms. People love to go to the range, but no one wants to just plow through a $20 bottle of OC spray to see how they aim it the first time. And I'll tell you, the first time you aim one, because you're pointing your finger in a completely different direction, right? You're aiming it like a hairspray bottle. So you're going to be off. You're not naturally going to point towards your target. You're going to be off. And that's the thing. Nobody wants to go practice with that because it's pretty expensive to do. But if you're say, hey, I'm going to get pepper gel, we'll go get 3 or 4 of the exact same one and practice, because the first time you pull that out, especially under stress, you're going to be pointed in a completely different direction because it's just not natural for your finger to kind of point that way when you're trying to shoot something forward.
It's not natural. It's so weird until you get used to it and build a little bit of muscle memory.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And you can't do that without the practice, just hands down. So I think we probably harped on this one enough. AC, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Wrap it up. We went over a little bit, but I think this was an important topic, and it's something a lot of people just don't tackle. I think a lot of people don't want to tackle this subject because, yeah, it's less than lethal is not really all that sexy.
It's not, but it's probably going to save your life in more than one way if
Yeah,
anything happens.
it's valuable. And again, it's not just equipment, it is a skill. It's valuable skills to have. De-escalation, uh, martial arts, these are all valuable skills to have. And obviously there's some gear, but the gear is worthless unless you know how to use it.
Yep. So next week, I think we're going to take on a couple of new apps that we've found. And I'm pretty excited about these because they're pretty cool.
There's some very cool new apps, and these are very all-encompassing apps. And I do see people online often ask about, are there apps to help, like, track your pantry and things like that? We have found 2 that are pretty amazing.
Yep. So come back next week and we will guide you through that. But until then, remember, you are your own stakeholder. We'll see you then.